Welcome back. This is Harriet Kemick with Down to Earth. I kid you not, it's been my experience that people judge you based on how they feel. It's almost as if people have a pre disclosed mindset on how they're going to judge you. They have already determined how they're going to judge you. So no matter what you do, no matter how you present yourself, they're going to judge you. Now, in the case of Dwayne Johnson, I can pick on him. He's an actor, right? And I don't think he minds. No, he doesn't give a fig, right? He just shows up. I am The Rock. I act. I used to be a wrestler. Okay, I'm a guy, right? That's how he presents himself, right? Now you look at him, and if he didn't have wealth and influence and power, I'm pretty sure there are some places he wouldn't be accepted in, even though he cleans up real well, puts on a suit, and so on. I don't think he wears art on his face, right? Some people wear it on their faces, on the sides of their faces, but typically it's on their bodies that they can expose so you can see what they're doing, right? And I'm saying all of that because I am a little bit taken aback by the ways in which we try to slot people in boxes, the ways in which we try to put people in a box almost as if we want to determine who people are, right? And it's amazing to me because I my life has been littered with people who make assumptions based on how you look. People, for instance, we judge people by color. So we assume that when someone shows up, if they're black, it's a lot of what we see in the criminal justice system. The assumption that young black males between 14 and 21 are inherently problematic. So if you have a young black male between 14 and 21, you need to hide him because the assumption is that if he shows up somewhere, he's most likely to be part of a problem. Same thing with Latinas, young Latinas between 14 and 21. But I often say, but what about whites, young white males between 14 and 21 who oftentimes are mass shooters? Where's the classification surrounding that? Right? If it is going to work for one group, then it should work for all groups, right? That same classification should be attached to it, right? Who is this? Somebody says, I don't have any tattoos and you'll never have tattoos. That's fine, right? I don't know. Tattooing is a form of body art, and it depends on who you are and on what you want to do about it, right? But just think about it. Is it fair then to classify people simply based on how you look? Because we see young mass shooters like a couple nights ago. Now the story is emerging about the mass shooting in Kansas. So two males went into a bar, they picked a fight, they asked them to leave, they left, then they came back and shot up the bar. Now we're finding out that the people who were in that bar were all Hispanics. Need we say more? No, that's very clear cut, right? Right. So what I'm saying is we tend to, as a society, this mass way of judging people based just simply on how you look without giving the person a chance to say who they are, without taking stock or making adjustments based on individuality. We just assume that people who look a certain way are predisposed to behaving a certain way. Kind of wrong, isn't it? We would have thought that by now we could have moved past that. And I don't know. I've often said, I've agreed with some social scientists, and I've said, well, it's because the society is so big, so huge. We're constantly looking for ways in which we can only do so many groupings. So we constantly look for ways in which we can put people in boxes. But is that even really true? Like, is that something we really even want to do? Is that something that is even doable based on the situation? Do we even want to do that? Right? Is that normal? Is that fair even? Right? Is it fair? Right? It's like the Dallas police officer, Geiger. She walked into someone's apartment, and because he was black, she fired shots. Now, if the person looked like her, I don't think she would have fired shots. And that's the bone of contention. The assumption she made, she was drunk or high, nobody wants to say, right? Because I don't know how it wasn't even like it was next door to her apartment, it was on a whole other floor. So, how do you even do that? I don't know. Suffice it to say, she did. And she's her defense is that she just walked into the wrong place. But if he were not black, would she have opened fire? Because her assumption is a young black male is most likely a criminal. So she shot him, not based on whether this young man was in college, had graduated college, worked, or so on, but just the color of his skin. It's still skin deep. It's still skin deep. No matter who you are, it seems to me that no matter who you are, no matter what you have done, no matter who you are, people still judge you by your color. I remember years ago when I was part of a group of people, and I was the only colored face in the room. And I was part of a group of women in particular. We were working on putting together a violence prevention summit. And I remember sitting there, and it's like I wasn't there. I mean, they were talking about things they were doing to people of color, that they were doing to school districts. And I was there. So, I just sat there and listened to it for a little bit because I was interested in what? Observing the dynamics. I wanted to see how powerful did they really think they were and how much damage and what they were going to say about people. And they said a lot. And so finally, when I said, hello, I'm sitting here. And they're like, no, we don't count you in that group. What's the difference? Couldn't say. What was the difference? And one woman was brave enough to say, well, you are not exactly from Detroit because you weren't born here. Oh my God. Was that something she should have said? Right? Was that some, but you know what it did for me? Was it told you exactly who they are. So she didn't group me. So I said to myself, oh, so people born in Detroit, grew up in Detroit, have a certain thing about them that you ascribe to them. And so you don't let them into your social groups. I see. Can you believe it? Do you see what I'm saying? Now, maybe in that case, I don't know that it worked in my favor. I don't think so. I don't look at it like that. I still think it was racist and classist and every kind of ism that you could think of, right? But at the same time, it was a learning experience for me. And in a lot of ways, this expresses and explains the turmoil we're seeing in our society today, because it's almost as if a social change is taking place. Talking about stuff like this, tattooing and so on, is indicative of a social change that is happening. It's people who are trying to emerge from the abyss and trying to emerge from the groups that we have put on people and labels we have attached to people that don't match them, that don't suit them. And I think that's what we need to focus on. If somebody shows up before you for a job, and we're going to wrap this up in just a few minutes, but if someone shows up for a job, are their credentials enough for them to get the job? Can we be ignorant of what they look like? Forget about tattoos for just a second. And a human being comes to you and applies for a job vacancy. Can we just look at the content of their character before we start doing criminal background checks, right? Before we can we, because I think if we're going to do any kind of background check, that's what we should look into. We should look into that part of it, the character part of it, not the color. Can we do that? I think we have to get to that stage. And there's all kinds of racisms and isms that are attached to people because people assume that people who are of Asian descent are most likely to be engineers or scientists or doctors. That's another grouping. Does that mean they can't be politicians or lawyers or judges? Does that mean they can't be a school principal? That all they can do is go figure out a code or go figure out some scientific experiment or something? Do you see what I'm saying? So it applies to them just the same. Are they just not as much a human being who can be anybody they want to be or do anything they want to do? right? Using tattoos as just an example, it's just an example of how in our society we group people based on their appearance rather than who they are, rather than the content of their character, and rather than who they are. We still need to get, we're still a work in progress. I like to look at this as if we're a work in progress, Raven. We're a work in progress. We're striving towards the ideal of judging people as they present themselves to be, rather than with the various descriptions that we attach. I think that's where we need to get to be. Don't you think? Right? uh, keep, I'm not even going to repeat what you said, right? But and that's just another form of judging people as well, because we attach descriptions to people of a specific religious group. We attach negative connotations to people who say this is what they believe, or people who say this is what they do. I think we need to get past that and judge people based on who they are. I agree with you on the Sharia law thing. I don't believe that extremism should take place. Any form of extremism should take place in our daily discourse or in our life. I totally agree with you with that. I don't believe in any form of extremism. I don't believe in religious extremism, neither from Christian fundamentalists nor from Islamic fundamentalists. I don't believe in extremism because extremism takes away the right of the individual from making decisions about who they are and who they want to be. So I don't believe in extremism in any form whatsoever. I believe that it has no place here in America, whether it's Sharia law or whatever else kind of extremism. I don't believe in some of these Christian fundamentalists running around telling people what they should do with their bodies either, or what they should do with their reproductive systems, right? It's ironic that it's a group of people who have never given birth or never had a period or ever had to deal with reproductive issues or never had to face fertility issues, right? So I don't believe in extremism at all. I don't support that anywhere because extremism is negative and it always invariably affects the most vulnerable, who are women and children, right? Another time I'll talk about ISIS and the fact that women's sexualized violence took place in war zones and the rest of the world just ignored it like it never happened. We'll talk about that another time. That's something we're going to talk about during Domestic Violence Month. Sexualized violence in war zones. That happened. And I'll give you statistics on it because I've been following that story for years. In fact, that's how the Exodus Foundation was formed, looking at war zones and what happens to children who were taken in villages and were used as chattels and sex slaves for grown men. And the rest of the world just went, well, it wasn't happening to my kids, so it didn't happen. Right? So, but the point I'm making is that we need to focus on judging people just by who you are, not by how you look. We've come to a stage in America where we have to cross over. This is our turning point. This is a turning point for us. We have to cross over. We have to get beyond the everyday analyses of pitting people and pitting one group against the other. We have to get to the point where people are just people are people. They have a need for health care. They have a need for money. They have a need for when they retire, they want their money. Striking workers should not be striking for so long. When large corporations have money, they can pay people out. They're just dragging it out because they don't want to acquiesce. That's what we need to focus on. We have to this is a turning point for our culture where we simply can't just sit back anymore and just let stuff happen as if it is just going to happen. We have to get to the point where we make a decision that from this point onwards, we're going to have to change the old guard. We're going to have to change the old ways of doing things and start looking at people as who they are, human beings, not looking at people as if, and that is not to say that there aren't some assumptions we make that are not true. That's not to say that. But if somebody shows up to apply for a job and the job requirements was not that you're black or white or wear a tattoo, right? The job requirement was that you fulfill the skill set that is required. That's what we need to focus on, right? Right. This is Harriet Kemrick with Down to Earth. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to thank my frequent commentator. Her name is Raven Bishop. How are you? Thanks to Raven Bishop, who is always a part of my show on YouTube. Hi, Raven. Love you. Thank you for always having something to say. I really like your spirit. You get it going. I really like that. All right, shout out to you. Have a great day. Love you much. And thanks to my other viewers. And thanks to those of you who have participated by listening. For more information on what we do, go to harrietkemmick.com, as well as go to the exodusfoundation.com. I am a writer, I'm an author. My books are available. Just go to Google, put my name in, and you'll find that there are books that I buy. You can go straight to amazon.com looking for my books. Make a purchase. Buy my books. Raven, buy my books. Have you read Through the Fire yet? I see you haven't, right? Okay. When you do, I know you'll let me know. So buy my books, Raven, and tell others about the show. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been an honor and a privilege. See you tomorrow. Have a great day. Be blessed.